I'd like to take you back to a time as a senior advisor for law enforcement activity, or LEA. My primary responsibility was ensuring we provided ready, highly trained personnel to the Department of Public Safety for city security patrol. On the surface, our partnership had very clear boundaries. The LEA held the administrative and training keys, while the DPS held the operational keys. They set the routes and the frequency. However, it was often the case in management, these defined authorities were tested by personality conflicts and the lack of transparency between the two leadership teams. It created a situation where both organizations were trying to pull the same rope in opposite directions. What made this critical conflict for me to solve wasn't just the friction at the top. It was the downward pressure on the officers. I noticed we were entering what I've since identified through my research as a grievance mechanism. Because the two departments were clashing, the officers felt trapped between competing loyalties. If they weren't seen as loyal to one specific side, their daily work life was made miserable. This had tangible, negative impacts on our mission. We saw a sharp decline in officer retention, but more importantly, we saw a drop in the quality of attention to detail during patrols. When security personnel are distracted by internal politics, they miss things. Their focus shifts from public safety to self-preservation. I realized that if I didn't intervene, we were heading towards a major operational failure. My first step was to move the conflict out of the hallways and into a structured environment. I pulled the leadership from both LEA and DPS into a joint meeting. My goal was to act as a neutral mediator. I made it very clear that I was not there to take sides, but to solve a system failure. During these discussions, I realized we were dealing with scholars call a hypergame. A hypergame occurs when parties are in conflict because they have fundamentally different perceptions of the rules. As we talked, it became clear that DPS wasn't trying to steal our administrative power. They simply didn't understand our legal constraints. Conversely, our LEA team didn't understand the data-driven logic DPS used for patrol frequencies. I used a graph model approach to map out our options. I showed both sides that current moves were only leading to a hurting stalemate where everyone lost. By being transparent about our internal processes, we replaced those misperceptions with facts. We eventually reached a state of stability where we drafted a formal agreement. LEA would guarantee specific volume of personnel. In exchange, DPS will respect our administrative independence of those officers. The results were transformative. Once we removed the misery of conflicting loyalties, the workplace environment shifted overnight. We reached what we called sequential stability, a point where both sides felt their interests were protected, so the need to intervene stopped. Because the officers no longer had to worry about political blowback, their attention to detail returned. Our security standards went back up to where they needed to be, and our retention numbers stabilized. It proved to me that most conflicts aren't about bad people. They're about sparse networks of information that haven't been properly connected. In the future, I will take these lessons into every management role I hold. I've learned that the best time to resolve conflict is before it begins, by establishing clear rules of movement and open communication channels earlier on. I don't just want to manage people. I want to manage the system that allows people to thrive. If I'm lucky enough to join your team, I'll bring the same analytical, non-biased approach to every challenge, ensuring that our team stays focused on the mission rather than the friction. Thank you for the opportunity to share that. Thank you.